We're going to make the Howitzer Baitfish popper, new fly by, I guess, the Surface Seducer, or the people who make Flymen. They made a lot of other products too. And they come out with these great popper heads, which I love. They're squishy and pretty useful. So let's start by using a stinger hook. They're different sizes than normal. This particular one's a size 6, but it would be more like a size 2/0 if we were using regular ones. Use some black thread. Normal thickness would be fine, 140. Do a jam knot to start. And we take our popper body head, get your bodkin, and we're going to poke a hole in his head. Make sure you find out which way is his head going. So there's an actual taper to this. This is his mouth, this is his head. And you want to make sure when you're poking it in from behind, it's going to be down where his throat would be. So we're just going to place a little hole right through from the back to the front. And you want to make sure that it's positioned low in the body, so it's going to ride properly. Don't stab yourself doing that. And do a dry run and put the popper body head on like so. That's looking about good. Now I'm just going to make sure the thread is put roughly where we want it. I'll take it back off again. So basically I just put that on to know that I don't really want to go too much further because that's where the head's going to slide on. So now I'm just going to move some thread to the back. And right here we're going to use rabbit strip. We've got rabbit right here. I've sliced it already. I don't know if you want to see my ingenious way of slicing rabbit, but if you do need to, you can get the rabbit skin. We're going to cut him lengthwise from his head to his tail, and you can use a bulldog clip like this, and then just slice like so. When you do it this way, you don't get rabbit fur flying up your nose or going anywhere. So we're going to lay it on here. Don't want the tail too long. We're just going to lay it on top and crank it down to start with. No big deal. We're going to cover it up in a minute or two with some other rabbit, so don't worry about it. And this piece can come all the way pretty much to the front. I know we went over that black stop. I don't know if you can see the thread wraps have stopped. Not that critical. You'll see why a little bit later. I want a little bit of a bump up here, but it just gives me an idea of where to stop. Okay. The next one we're going to do, so we've got a tail. We want to make sure it is square and flat and there's a zonker on top. Next thing we want to do is put on some material. So let's find some materials we want to use. I like some sparkling material if possible. This I'm going to use the Palmer chenille. I like that. It's like a feather, but it's made of synthetic. It's got some nice flash to it. And it's interesting stuff. It lays flat if you can get it right. And we'll just tie some of that on. And tie that down to make sure it's nice and strong. All right, now we can do another dry run. We do this every so often just to make sure we're okay, not coming too far. Move the thread forward. Sorry, and now we're going to, I'm actually going to move that out of the way so we can start wrapping this. We do want to wrap this so that it starts to fold backwards. We'll try and correct it in a minute. There we go. I'm going to cut some of this off. It's going to be a little too long to use, all connected together, so we'll just use a smaller piece. And what we're going to try and do is wrap this and fold it back as we go forward. So we fold back, wrap forward. Make sure. Now sometimes it actually lays flat nicely, like right there. It's laying quite nicely anyway. We're not overlapping it, but we are making it cover each piece. Just filling in that gap. There's lots of other materials we could use. Once it gets going, it seems to lay in the right direction anyway. So we could have put a little zapper gap on the body and made this even more durable for the bass not to destroy. But we're going to go with it as is. All right, that's looking about good. Now I want to do another dry run with the body to make sure that it's going to fit properly. And you can leave the thread attached, it's not a big deal. We're not doing anything permanently. Just going to make sure That's pretty close. Just looking at it, I can get a few more wraps behind it. So we can continue that just a little bit more. And if you go a little bit beyond your stopping point, it's not a big deal because the foam's going to glue to that backing material. So that's about it. I'll do my final test. Make sure it's going to work. I'm loving it. Right there, let's finish that off. Finish off that material. Okay, now we're just going to whip finish this. Hopefully my fingers don't get in the way. And again, we're coming almost to the last point. I'm just going to do my last dry run. Talk to some customers. You do want to do this final step. Make sure you put it down the right way because once you glue it on, you've only got a couple of seconds. So, leaving it face up, I'm going to get my glue and put some glue in the front of this thing. You don't need it at the back so much because the foam's going to push it that way anyway. So I'm just liberally coating this. And this is do or die time right now. So we're going to go this way. I'm going to push, make sure the eye does come out of the other end. That looked like it worked. I squish it both ways. That's about it. Okay, liking that. That's nice and solid. Got a nice hook gap. All the proportions are right. It's going to low in the water because of the heavy rabbit tail and pop up and give a wonderful sound. We're going to do a couple more things that are really cool. Here we go. So we're going to do some funny wraps on this. Crisscross. And it's a really cool effect we can get from doing this. So we do multiple crisscross back and forth. It looks a little crazy, I know. Not too tight, but relatively tight. And we're going to call it quits right there. All right. Get that out of the way. We'll use that later on. Then we're going to take some of this Office Depot air dust, compressor dust. And we're going to take a regular Sharpie. Yeah, just a Sharpie. I'm going to turn it here a little bit. I'm going to turn it my way. You just have to get the idea of it. What I'm going to do is line up the air compressor with the ink of the Sharpie, very carefully spray it. It takes a little bit of practice. You can overblow it, but we're going to stick with that. Go like that. Now, just to be fancy, we're going to do the bottom half in an orange color instead. And again, just hold it up there. A little bit more underneath there. Just don't have your friend in front of it. Get it too tied up. All right, then the big reveal, if we can get this thread to come undone. I'm trying to figure out where I put it. So as we unreveal it, you get this really cool effect on the top there. I just love that zigzag. Didn't happen so much on the orange underneath, but certainly on that top there, it's looking really good. You can use other materials. There's a mesh pad you can put on top and get all kinds of other finishes too that are really cool, top and bottom. All right, final step. I'm going to put some eyes on this thing. So we're using some glue, just a little bit of glue in the eyes. These are peel and stick eyes, but they don't stick very strongly by themselves. You have to reinforce it with some glue. And not easy to put the eyes on, I must admit. They're always a little fiddly. I'm just going to slide them in there with my finger just a little bit. I'm going to use the needle to do the final adjustment. Slide that in and then rotate it around. Once we get the eyes the right direction, I'm just going to squish it. Make sure they're in there pretty good. You might be able to see that one. And we do the same on the other side. Like that. Take one of these. Sometimes you can stick it to the back of the needle, but they don't seem to stick very well. So make sure you want to know that's straight. They're pretty handy that they fit into the slot, and I just rotate them around until I like the way they are, and then give it a squish. That's pretty much the fly. The Howitzer baitfish popper. It dives, makes a hell of a mess, noise, durable as can be. Fish, it's flexible so it doesn't break, and catches fish like crazy.